This podcast has been produced on the traditional lands of the Gadigal and Bidjigal peoples. From 2RPH and the Wicking Trust, this is Passing Thoughts. I'm Rob Kaldor. This is the podcast where we explore death, dying and everything in between. Welcome to the final episode of Series 2. Don't worry, we're already working on Series 3 and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But for our final episode, we have something really special. Connie Mason speaks with photojournalist Julian Kingma about his remarkable book, The Power of Choice. It's co-authored with Steve Offner and the images in it are truly breathtaking. The book explores the deeply personal stories of people who have chosen voluntary assisted dying, capturing their experiences with honesty, dignity and compassion. Our contributor for this episode is Connie Mason, and she takes up the story.
I'm with Julian Kingma, and on the desk in front of us is his book, The Power of Choice. It's a photographic record and the story of people in the last few days of their life, sometimes the last hours. These are men and women who made a very deliberate choice about how and when they will die using voluntary assisted dying. Over 18 months, Julian was granted extraordinary access to record the journey of these patients, their families, the medical staff, and the carers who walked alongside them. And the result is a book that is as confronting as it is tender. Julian, welcome and hi.
Hi, Connie, and thanks for having me.
You, I believe, have a fascination with death, or have always had a fascination with death.
I would call it a neurotic panic.
Really? I also heard it described as a mortal fear.
And that mortal fear was instilled by my mum, who was an incredible hypochondriac.
Right.
So it was catching.
Okay, so given that state of mind, I'm curious, what was it made you think, I need to record the experience of these people?
It's something that always interested me as a photojournalist.
Right.
So even before this book sort of existed and it popped into my head, I'd always covered end-of-life stories for newspapers because I worked on the Sunday Age and the Herald for a good part of 20 years of my career. And I would always, because, you know, Jules was the empath of the photographic world apparently, so I always got sent out on these. And also because of my Dutch heritage, it's been legal over in the Netherlands for as long as I can.
Voluntary assisted dying you're talking about.
Yeah, so that also fascinated me, but it was, it sort of caught me off guard a little bit because I was photographing for the Australian Weekend magazine, Melbourne's first guy that was legally granted VAD.
Okay.
And from that, the journalist said, have you listened to Andrew Denton's Better Off Dead podcast? And I said, no. I said, and it was COVID, and I was like looking to do something challenging. I wanted to do a project because I had a lot of time on my hands. And I listened to his podcast and I was shocked. I was angry. I was sad. I couldn't stop listening. I think I listened to it 3 times because I just couldn't believe what these people were going through, because this was being legalised. Yeah.
And is that what made you angry?
Yeah, I just thought about these poor people. How dare people make decisions on
other people's behalf?
So I sort of decided to reach out, and I reached out to Go Gentle, who are an extraordinary organisation, might I add. That's kind of how it sort of started.
And so did you have in mind a particular format for this assignment?
I just wanted to do something meaningful where, you know, as a photographer, it would have some kind of really big impact somehow. I was hopeful for a long-form magazine piece. That's what I thought I'd probably get to, if anything, because I knew it was a stretch. But when I went to Go Gentle, they said, send a proposal. I sent the proposal in, and then within 24 hours, they rang me and said, we love this proposal so much that we think that this is much, much bigger than what you are anticipating. So I had a Zoom with Andrew Denton, and in his words, he said, my spider senses are tingling. And I went, I'll trust you because you know way more about media than I do, but what do you think? He said, I think we can go big on this.
Big collaboration.
Big collaboration.
Wow. So was it Go Gentle that put you in touch with these people?
So what they did was they were sort of like the conduit. They made a letter for me if I needed one, but basically they gave me all the contacts of like physicians, navigators, all those people involved with voluntary assisted dying.
So you just had the names?
I just had the names and emails.
And you took it from there?
And I took it from there and I emailed everyone, and what happened was within about 48 hours my email exploded.
Wow. So your first contact was with the people who had been approved for voluntary assisted dying?
Yep.
And what did you say in your email? What did you tell them you wanted to do?
I just sent out an email saying, is there anyone interested in being involved in this project? I'm sort of, I'm paraphrasing. But within that email, just all these people and families said, I want to tell my story. I want to tell my story. If it means I can save one person from pain, then I'm the person you need to speak to. I was a bit overwhelmed, but also heartened because so many people had reached out. And I just went, okay, well, I don't know much about this, so I just started at the start and I just randomly picked a person to ring.
And who was the first person you called?
I called Sue Parker. Sue Parker was great because I was on my way for a surf and I thought, I'll ring her now. And I pulled over and I rang Sue Parker and I said, hi, Sue. I said, I got your email and I said, I'm really interested in coming out to see you and thank you for your time. When's a good time to come out? She said, you better come out either tomorrow or the next day because I'm dying on Monday.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that the response that you expected?
No, it wasn't. But the nice thing is that we both laughed.
Okay.
She was a great introduction to VAD because she was so adamant to tell her story because she was a former nurse.
Yes.
Motor neuron. She knew what that looked like. She knew what was coming and she said, no way, which was very difficult for her daughter, Nicole. But Nicole and all her family were behind her and she was adamant. And so I went to Sue Parker's house and we got very, very drunk because she'd been drinking for the last month.
Well, Sue was full of surprises.
She's funny.
Was she very ill at that stage?
No. To look at, if you were to see her, she had a cane and a small limp.
Yes.
That was all. I didn't really notice anything else. Her speech was perfect because that can go too. So she wanted to sucker punch this thing.
Did that surprise you that she was so well?
In retrospect, no, I didn't because she explained it so well and so eloquently about why. And having now seen a lot of motor neuron, I can now understand why she did what she did. And I totally understand why.
So that must have given you a lot of encouragement.
It made me realise that people were potentially going to trust me because I was worried about people trusting me and that was a big thing.
Because building trust...
It's paramount.
And you'd have experience with your usual portrait photography.
Yeah.
It's important to build trust with people.
That was very important to me, particularly with this. I hate the word project. Let's call it an assignment. So I was good with that because I knew that I could handle different people's personalities. But what I did have to do and made sure that I did was not try and lead them into a preconceived photograph. In my head, I decided that I wanted to give them the power, the opportunity to give them the power to say, this is how I'd like to be photographed, or I don't want to do this. And one of my big things too was I would always leave my camera out of sight and I would talk to them first because I didn't want to just be this person with the camera. I really wanted to be a human being and talk to them.
So not all of your patients were as well as Sue?
No. I would argue that Sue, in terms of physically, she was probably the most well out of everyone.
So can you tell me perhaps about another person who really comes to mind, sticks in your mind?
Nigel. The reason being not because I just photographed him to the end, but because we understood each other straight away.
When you say you photographed him to the end, what do you mean by that?
As in, I photographed him actually being administered and then dying. Right. I made multiple visits to Nigel and Kath.
That was his wife?
Yeah,
yes.
Kath was Nigel's wife. Nigel was, a truck driver from the Pilbara. You know, your classic salt of the earth people, just wonderful, beautiful people. And I knew immediately when I walked in there I was going to love these two, regardless of what I photographed. So I always made a rule that I would never insert myself. I would always do what they wanted. So he actually spoke to me about, he said, I hadn't even had my camera out, and he said, Jules, he goes, would you consider photographing me when it comes time?
So he asked for that?
Yes.
So these people, they felt empowered that you were giving them the opportunity to tell their story.
I found that so surprising.
Yeah, so they were thinking of other people, not just themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder how I would respond to that. If I was given, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably go and hide under a rock.
They were so terribly, terribly ill. And from the photographs, I can see that some of them were barely able to communicate. They were very, very sick people, but they were still intent on doing this.
Still intent, yeah. It's an incredible thing, really, because, you think about someone who's in that sort of state of vulnerability. And not only that, I interviewed them as well. So they're talking to me and letting me photograph them, a stranger. I found that incredible.
So normally with your other portraiture, would you have multiple sitting sessions?
No, but
Okay.
I wanted this to be the case because for two different reasons. One, they might have get 5 minutes in and then feel unwell and then have to stop. Two, I wanted to get to know them very well so that I could formulate ideas about how this could work depending on their illness, because some people some days were in bed all day.
So you knew it was going to be very different to photographing people who were not unwell.
All my preconceived ideas about portraiture went out the window. And that was a good thing.
Yes.
That was a good thing for me, because that meant that they were more important than what it was that I was trying to insert. Well, I led the dance, but I let them lead the way.
So Sue opened the door for you in a way.
Sue opened the door, and she was the perfect person to open the door, and the first thing she did was literally hand me a glass of wine.
And gave you a hangover.
A massive hangover. In fact, my wife was with me, and I couldn't drive home.
Is that right?
Yep. She was great.
Yes.
Yeah, so she was great. I'm fairly certain, and she did say, look, no one wants to die, Jules, but I'm going to do this, and I'm fine. I'm good with it, And I'm thinking, shit. Okay, that's some determination.
So how did that impact on you personally? Did that change your thoughts about death?
Yeah, it did. The whole thing did. It did, and I still find it hard to articulate how it did. I still carry that fear. I think that I realised that death is very complicated and it affects people differently, because as a kid, all I thought was awful, painful, scary, all those things that VAD isn't. Scary to die, but VAD, I now consider myself quite well educated within the realm of voluntary assisted dying, that I can with great authority say that it is an incredible thing and it's humane, it's painless and it's quick. And when you see some of these people in unbearable pain and existential pain, then you go, do it before you lose capacity.
And did they all, everybody that you intended to meet, did they all go through with their VAD process?
No, not everybody did, which is fine. The reason I say it's fine is because none of the people, thankfully, on my watch died painfully. So the ones that chose not to but had it there, the thing that was good about it for them was it took the anxiety away.
Just knowing they had the option.
Yeah, depending on what illness they had, like Simon McGilvery, who was a smoker, but he was so scared of choking to death. And so he did go through with it because he was losing his ability to breathe.
And I'm thinking about Phil O'Keefe, who had the option.
That's right.
Of proceeding with VAD or having his ventilation removed and sedated.
He chose the latter.
But he always had that choice.
He had the choice, yes. And they did oxygen withdrawal. I was there for that. If we're in the business of dying peacefully and pain-free, that's exactly what happened, and they were right.
Wow. So you weren't just photographing these people at this end of life. You were actually present at their death. I mean, that's a privilege. That's so intimate.
Everybody has used that word intimate, and it's probably the best word to describe it because it is, and can understand how, it's not for everyone. Even when I started this project, I could see the line in the sand between palliative and VAD. Mm-hmm. But as time's gone, that gap's closing, thankfully. They're now holding hands. And I'm not pro one or the other. The only thing that made me angry was when people were opposing VAD because they were blocking something that was, to me, a person's decision. A right, a total right.
So in your book, you don't just record the experiences of the people who are dying. You also talk about the people involved in that process, and there's quite a few. So there's pharmacists, there's the medical professional, the navigators.
Very important people.
Are they the angels of mercy?
They really are. I can't speak more highly of them because not only are they the sort of like the nuts and bolts, I mean, they play a huge role. I mean, you've got your GPs and your doctors and all that, but the navigators are the ones that explain, they're the conduit to all the people that are involved in VAD. And not only that, they'll sit there and have a cup of coffee and talk to them about it, and not just talk about death, they'll just keep them company. And so that was my experience. And to watch them work with these people is incredible.
They're the first port of call.
Yeah, once the two doctors signed off, you have to have two doctors. Yeah, they'll put you in touch with a navigator, and that navigator will then walk you through the process.
And then there's pharmacists.
The pharmacist arrives with the black box, but that could be months ahead. The pharmacists are never there for the end. They just deliver the medication.
So that could be, as you say, a long time before the person. So from that point on, it is the option of the patient to decide when their day is to be administered and to die.
It's literally a black box that looks like a petty cash can with a lock. Someone has a key and it sits there.
What is it that brings that person to make the final decision? With Sue, she was still well, and she clearly didn't want to get to the point where she was ill and suffering.
She just sedates straight up.
But that's not the case with all of them.
No, it's actually, she was like one of the biggest exceptions to all the rules.
There are some people we didn't mention, the families. So are the families always on board with this?
Seemingly they were. What I was fearful of was getting families sending bad emails to me or saying, I disagree with this, but thankfully none of that happened. Some family members struggled with the idea of it, but that was only because they didn't want to lose a loved one. I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that it was VAD. I think the scary thing is that when someone sets a date, they know that that's it. And I know that when Sue set her date, that Nick was looking at that going,
her daughter.
Yeah, Nick, it's coming.
Yes.
Others missed the window because they
passed.
lost capacity and died in hospital or in hospice, or and some just went, tomorrow. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I think that was the case with Simon McGilvery. I think he just went, I'm going to do it tomorrow. I've had enough, and tomorrow's the day. Right. And everyone just went, okay, off we go.
It's big, isn't it?
It's big.
Doesn't get bigger than that.
It's big.
Wow. So you spent 18 months doing
more,
this.
but yeah.
And did you write the text for the book as well?
I helped. I interviewed everybody. Steve Offner, God bless him, helped edit and curate the book, put the text together, put the quotes together. I was kind of flying a bit blind, really, just running a tape, and I would just send them my interviews. So a lot of help putting that together. What
happened when the book came out?
The writers' festivals just completely jumped on it. New South Publishing were incredible. They're an incredible team, and somehow, by some sheer miracle, which I'm still trying to work out how that worked, because my thought was there's no way Death is going to sell.
What does that tell you?
Maybe it made it less of a taboo subject to talk about.
So you've certainly demystified VAD, but do you think you've also demystified death in some way?
For some, maybe, hopefully. It looks like I have. It seems to be.
What happened to you after the book came out? Did your life change?
Yeah, it did. It changed in a way that I've always loved human beings. You know, that's why I like portraiture. That's why I like talking to people. But what changed was that I realised that there's so much talk at the moment about, you know, there's so much bad going on in the world. You know, that's all we hear. But for that 2.5 years, all I saw was goodness, and all I saw was good people. And I realised that far outweighs what we hear, you know, and what we perceive the world to be. I'm not saying that there's not horrible things happening, but what changed in me is that if I was cynical about the world at any point, which I wasn't, it made me realise that there are very good people out there, and they're just anonymous. That's all. That's the only difference.
I find that surprising, because instead of a assignment dealing with death being in any way melancholy or even black, it was uplifting.
It was uplifting. Yeah, and it had the opposite effect, because everybody, and rightly so, asked me, you know, Neil Mitchell said to me, didn't you get depressed? And I said, not once was I depressed. Sad? Absolutely.
Yes.
But there's a difference.
Yes. Yes, there's sorrow.
There's sorrow and there's sadness and there's empathy, but I wasn't depressed.
No.
It didn't depress me. And Go Gentle, to their credit, and everyone else has offered, you know, counselling and things like that. But the counselling was the book. But
your life has changed. You are so busy.
I am so busy.
As a result of this publication.
Yes. That part, it's changed.
Have you got time to do other work?
I do. Yes. But I'm committed to this, and I didn't expect to be this busy. If you can catch lightning in a bottle like that, then I'm going to say yes to everything, because it's very important to me. It's very important that the book gets under every nose, under every physician, under every person's nose who is fearful of end of life, no matter what that is, because it does cover palliative, it does cover VAD, it covers a massive breadth. And I sort of consider it like a roadmap for people who might not know about it. Even my local GP, I gave him one, and he goes, Jules, I read this last night. And he goes, I had no idea. No
Wow.
idea. And I just went, wow. So I sort of unearthed with a lot of help, because without those people, there'd be no book.
So did you set out with a clear vision of what you wanted to achieve?
Absolutely not.
And this has evolved into something.
Yes, it just became
amazing.
a thing, and call it a really wonderful object, because I love tangible objects, and I would have loved to have had a book, and I thought that's never going to happen. But Go Gentle disagreed, and they said, no, this will be a book. And I went, good luck.
Okay.
Good luck. And then Kathy Bale came along and said, let's do it. I'm so happy to do this.
Do you think there might be a chance for a follow-up?
I think, we stick with the one, and I've done the job that I intended and wanted to do. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to do something meaningful.
It's been a wonderful collaboration.
Yeah.
With an incredible result.
Yeah, it has been. It's just keeps flying out the door.
Yep.
Thanks to Julian Kingma. His book The Power of Choice is available now wherever good books are sold. And thanks to Connie Mason, whose knack for finding compelling stories and thought-provoking content for this podcast is truly unparalleled. Before we go, one of the things we've discovered while making Passing Thoughts is that people tend to have one of two reactions to the podcast. Some people embrace it immediately. They tell us how refreshing it is to hear honest conversations about death, dying, grief, aging, and the big questions that affect all of us. They lean in, listen closely, and often tell us the discussions help them have conversations they've been putting off for years. And then there are those who run a mile. The moment they hear the podcast is about death and dying, they change the subject, make a joke, or decide it's probably not for them. The interesting thing is that both these reactions make perfect sense. Death remains one of the last great taboos. It's universal, yet many of us struggle to talk about it. What we've learned across the two series is that when people do engage with these conversations, they're rarely just about death. They're about how we live, what matters most, the relationships we cherish, and the legacy we leave behind. As I mentioned, this is the final episode for Series 2, but we're already into the production of Series 3, so here are some snippets for you to listen to.
I once bought magic mushrooms off a policeman in Thailand and then responded by, when he got out the handcuffs and, the other cops came in, I responded by punching this guy and then running off, which miraculously worked.
And you're surrounded by straw and other bits and pieces, and gradually over about 9 months, you, I guess, break down and become part of the earth. And at that stage, when both of you have had 9 months there, they then dig up above you and plant the tree in above you. But it requires 2 graves for the size of these trees to grow on.
I had an experience 30 years ago in my very first meditation where I experienced myself as the energy, the soul, the light, not the body. And since then, I've believed that I am not the body, I'm a soul. And when I die, my soul leaves and the body stays here.
A special shout out to our contributors in this series, Connie Mason, Jane Mundy and Barbara Sullivan. A big thank you as well to all the guests in Series 2 who have been varied and giving of their own stories. Passing Thoughts is made with the funding provided by the Wicking Trust and the invaluable support from the team at 2RPH, Barry, Marty and Veronica. If you have feedback, topic suggestions or want to share your own experience, you can email us at passingthoughts@2rph.org.au. Thanks for listening.
This is a Radio 2RPH production.